What's going on, y'all? It's been a bit, but we're finally back. Welcome to Wood Talk Sports, and we've got a mock draft video for you today. It has been, as I said, a while since I've made one of these. I'm busy with school and everything, but I'm just trying to get us ramped back into it before the draft starts, of course. It is draft month. April 1st is today, and this isn't an April Fool's video. I'm not going to make some random draft picks here. I'm going to be serious for this one, and there's been a lot that has changed since my last one. I believe my last mock draft maybe was about a month ago, and I know some of the key players I had on there. Shamar Stewart going to the Niners was the one that I can think of the most right now. Abdul Carter to the Browns was another guy. Some of these might stay the same, some of these might change, but obviously we've had the combine, we've had pro days go on so far, and we're just getting into towards the end of the stage. My plan is to get 3 more out for you guys, maybe 4. Depending on how scheduling looks. Obviously, the 26th, I believe, is when the draft is. Don't quote me on that, though. It's just usually around that time frame. But we're going to get into it with our mock draft today. And we'll just start ahead with number 1, Cam Ward. I think the Titans need to pick Cam Ward at number 1 overall, especially post-free agency. I think, there's still... I believe Rodgers is still a free agent. I've kind of zoned out of the NFL offseason for the last week or so because with baseball starting, of course. Been trying to keep up with that as well, which we will have some baseball stuff coming onto the channel, especially through the summer. Might have a new MLB The Show series coming out. Just so we can have the commentary work, my commentary work, so y'all can just hear that from me. But anyways, Cam Ward, number 1 overall. They need a quarterback, in my opinion, number 1. Abdul Carter, it would be a phenomenal pick for them as well. I just think Cam Ward is the selection for the Titans in this draft. I don't think you need to wait another year. I don't think you wait until day 2, day 3 to get a quarterback. You go ahead and get Cam Ward, unless maybe you're able to trade that for maybe a younger quarterback, which I've seen some trades. I don't like any of them so far, but so with that, I'm just going to have Cam Ward at number 1. Now at number 2, we'll go with Abdul Carter for the Browns. They did just extend Myles Garrett, so it kind of, the need for edge rusher isn't as important just in case they would have had to trade Myles Garrett, but we'll still go edge rusher here, and you know why is I'm going to do that is Abdul Carter is an unbelievable prospect, and having him and Myles Garrett on your team would be unbelievable and a nightmare for offensive play callers and offensive coordinators and head coaches. Anybody who plays that team would be very afraid of that pass rush, and obviously, they were trying to get Russ, did not land Russ. He's in New York now, and they got Kenny Pickett this year. That was about it. So they've got a big question mark. But I think there's some guys in day 2, which I'll put on here. Maybe day 3, like Jalen Milroe. If Dart lands in the second round, I think Dart to the Browns would be something in play. Maybe even wait a little bit longer for some of these other guys. I think there is a big possibility that they just focus more later in the rounds because Abdul Carter is that good, and the Browns have really came out and started talking about how much they like Abdul Carter. So I'm going to go Abdul Carter at number 2 to the Browns. Next up, number 3 to the Giants. You guys might say, well, you seem a little hypocritical because you didn't give the Browns a quarterback when they need so desperately a quarterback. But this team went out and got 2 quarterbacks in free agency, and now you're going to give this team the quarterback? I think that the Browns, even though the quarterback position is so needy, Abdul Carter is Abdul Carter. I do see these 2 picks possibly being flopped. I do think that Abdul Carter to the Giants is very, very, very much in play with Kayvon Thibodeau, 5th-year option. Could be declined from the Giants, and he could be gone soon because he really just hasn't been what they've wanted him to be because of injuries and when he's on the field. He hasn't been producing to the level what they thought he was going to be when they drafted him fifth overall. But we're going to go with Shedeur Sanders to New York. Shedeur goes to the Big Apple, or East Rutherford, New Jersey. I think this is honestly, to me, I really like this pairing of him in New York. I think with the recent signing of Russell Wilson, getting Shedeur Sanders and having his mentor be such a humble guy like Russell Wilson, which a lot of people don't like Shedeur's attitude, would be great for him, because he gets to learn under Russ. He gets to, who's a great quarterback, Hall of Fame quarterback, Russell Wilson. You get to learn under him. You get to just basically build your character around him as an NFL player. And if I'm a GM, if there's any player I want my up and coming rookie quarterback to build his character around, it's gonna be Russell Wilson. That guy is a wonderful human being, and he's a great dude. So, and he can play football. He can play the game of football. Obviously, not to the level that he used to be able to when he was with Seattle, but I think Shedeur to the Giants would be a big move, and I think the Giants would really, really, really like Shedeur Sanders if he is available at 3. I personally think my favorite prospect for them is Travis Hunter. I think the fact that the cornerback position is a bit of a need, and your wide receivers position isn't that deep, You've got Malik Neighbors, you got Wan'Dale Robinson, you just re-signed Darius Slayton to a 3-year deal. I think if you were able to get a guy like Travis Hunter, who, when you have a guy like Deonte Banks, who in his second season really didn't perform to the level that you wanted him to, but you do have promising rookies on your team, that's something that I would really look into, going to Travis Hunter, because I think this Giants defense is going to be pretty good this year. But we're going to go Shedeur Sanders at number 3. Now at number 4, to the Patriots, I think this is a no-brainer for me. Travis Hunter's available at number 4 for New England. You pick him. You need a wide receiver. He can play wide receiver, and then he'll also go on the other side of the ball and play corner for you. And in having him alongside of Christian Gonzalez especially is something that would be so awesome to watch. I mean, Christian Gonzalez is absolute shutdown. Then you have a freak athlete at corner with him as well. If Hunter is able to do the two positions in the NFL, which I do believe he will do, but I'm not going to really say much about him. He's the best athlete we've seen in maybe ever in the NFL draft. If he falls out of the top 5, I would genuinely lose my marbles if he did. I'd lose my mind. So we'll have him at number 4. Obviously, if he doesn't go to 4, I think he goes to 5, right, to the Jacksonville Jaguars, because that's another team that could use him. But with that, we're going to go with Mason Graham to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Mason Graham is a guy that I have always been putting inside the top 10. He's one of the best defensive line players. He's the best defensive tackle, obviously, in this draft. But I think that his ability to just be so polished, I think he's just such a polished player already for a college player, is something that I really do like. And the fact that the Jaguars are going to be able to get him at 5, which is still pretty high for that, that type of player. But I like Mason Graham a lot. As a Saints fan, I wouldn't mind him falling to 9, but I think obviously we need edge more than defensive line, but interior. We'll go Mason Graham, number 5. Now for number 6, the Raiders. People, if you've been keeping up to the Raiders news, I know I have. My dad's a big Raiders fan, so I have almost inherited rooting for him. So they've been big on Ashton Jeanty, and I don't blame them, because Ashton Jeanty is fantastic. And with a team with the Raiders, you do have gaps in positions. You did lose Robert Spillane. You lost, I'm pretty sure, Divine Diablo. So that linebacker position is a little bit empty. You did just sign Devin White last week as well, though. Hoping to have a resurgence in his career in Vegas. Didn't really play in Houston this last year, but I think that when a guy like Ashton Jeanty is available for you, and I think he is very well going to be out within the top 10, because if he falls to Chicago at 10, I think Chicago swoops him up. I also think the Saints could pick him up at 9, with Kamara being 31 soon, which I'm pretty sure 31 in 2026 or 31 this year. But he's getting up there in age. And really no depth in that position. Kendre Miller gets hurt all the time. I think Jeanty to 6 to the Raiders is perfect for Vegas. You give Chip Kelly, who, was just the offensive coordinator for the Ohio State Buckeyes, who's now the OC for the Raiders. You give him Ashton Jeanty, and he was really good with his dual backfield of Travion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins. Obviously, the Raiders do not have the NFL equivalent of two top running backs in the game. That'd almost be like if Chip Kelly was kind of coaching the Lions. But you give him a running back of Ashton Genty's caliber, he'll be able to really unleash this guy. And you saw the Raiders do this last year too. They had big needs. They had bigger needs. Running back isn't their biggest need this year. I think it is probably one of the biggest needs, but it's not their biggest need. It's one of them. And last year, in the draft at 13, their biggest need to everybody was quarterback. And, this was a very quarterback heavy draft. However, you got to 13 and all your quarterbacks that were possibly first rounders were gone. Bo Nix just got drafted by Denver. And you looked at what Vegas needed, and I don't think people would have said off rip tight end because Michael Mayer was just drafted to Vegas the year prior, and he was a great prospect. He was one of the better tight ends in college football for the time he was in college football. And they went out and drafted Brock Bowers, and that was just really like blue chip prospect. This guy's something you've never seen. I'm going to take him because he's going to elevate our team. And despite, he didn't really elevate the team because the team is drafting 6th overall. He had an unbelievable season, was arguably the best tight end in the NFL this year, him or George Kittle, and had the best rookie tight end season ever. And that's why I think you take another blue chip prospect like Ashton Genty, who, people may not think he has the receiving upside, but his sophomore season he had around 500 receiving yards. So he can receive the ball. It's just Boise State changes their game plan for him to really just be able to run over people because that's what he can do. He can just pound the rock on you. So I think Genty to 6 to the Raiders is a great pick. For anybody saying that it's not because they have bigger needs, I think Genty is filling a gap that they do want to address in this year. And he's a blue chip prospect, just like what they did last year with Brock Bowers. So Ashton Genty 6. Now, number 7 to the Jets. This guy, talk about a draft riser this year. Armand Membou, or Membau, or whatever. I think it's Membou. That's what I'm going to say. Had a great scouting combine as an offensive tackle. He's probably going to move into guard. I would see the possibility of him doing that. He could stay at tackle with New York, but the Jets need to address that offensive line now that they signed Justin Fields. Keep that dude safe. You got to keep that dude safe. He's young. He's mobile. He has potential. But if you don't keep him safe, he'll never be able to unleash that potential. So that's where you go offensive line. I've seen some people start to mock Tyler Warren to the Jets. Also Tyler Warren to the Saints. But I am going to go with an offensive lineman here instead of Tyler Warren because I think that the number one priority for you is tackle. And Armand Membou has been great this whole draft process. And I think, once again, this might be a little bit hypocritical because Genty, I said, that's not their biggest need. Take the better player. And Tyler Warren, people would see that's a better player. I just think the Jets, with everything you've done this offseason, putting so much, putting all the eggs, not all the eggs in the basket, but going out and getting Justin Fields, you got to protect Justin Fields, and that's why Armand Membou goes number 7 to the Jets. Now, at number 8 to the Carolina Panthers, I've been between 2 to 3 people, Jahdae Barron, Tetairoa McMillan, and Jalen Walker. And I think it's their 3 biggest needs. PFF agrees. Wide receiver, Xavier Legette. He didn't really get as much production as you would expect from a first-round wide receiver. Adam Thielen actually looked pretty good when he was playing, but he's also very old. And that's why I look at Tetairoa McMillan and say, hey, that's a great pick for Carolina. You get a guy for Bryce Young to throw the ball to, a deep threat for Bryce Young to throw the ball to. Or you go Jalen Walker. That defensive line could use some help. And Jalen Walker, even though he's listed as a linebacker, can play off ball and he can play off the edge. Defensive back, Jahdae Barron, pretty self-explanatory. He can play anywhere as a corner. But I'm going to go Tetairoa McMillan. And I think it's because of the offensive weapon weaponry to add to Bryce Young. Bryce Young stepped up really well in the second half of the season, and you give him another weapon to be able to keep on improving and keep on getting better. And I think Tetairoa McMillan does just that, and I think he fits well with Carolina. So I'm going to go McMillan to the Panthers. Now, number 9, to my New Orleans Saints. This one, as much as I would love the Ashton Jeanty to 9, as much as I'd love the Tetairoa McMillan, the Tyler Warren, the top prospects, this team's pass rush last year was absolutely horrendous. It was one of the worst pass rush. Like, you just didn't do anything. Brian Bursey was our leader in sacks. And that's where I just come in and you go look at these edge rushers. I like a lot of them. I've always liked Mike Green. He's finally getting the respect he deserves. But I'm going to go with Jalen Walker, and I just explained why. He can play off ball, he can play on the edge, and that is someone that would be absolutely valuable. A versatile weapon like Jalen Walker in a Brandon Staley defense is a very good match. And Brandon Staley would be able to use Jalen Walker how Georgia used Jalen Walker, and that's why I think he should be the number 1 defensive priority for New Orleans in this draft. If they weren't to have a guy like Brandon Staley at defensive coordinator, who, a lot of people don't like him as a head coach, me included. I love him as a DC. You got guys like Jalen Ramsey going out and saying, that's a great hire because I love that guy. And he's a really good defensive coordinator. And people, kind of let his head coach resume with the Chargers kind of diminish how good he was as a defensive coordinator. But Jalen Walker works well under his type of defenses, and I think that's why the Saints go out and pick Jalen Walker at number 9. Number 10 now to Chicago. I'm just going to make it simple. I'm going to go Will Campbell. I think a guy like Malachi Starks here is also a possibility. Apparently some people have been following him in his draft stock. I still think Malachi Starks is one of the best players in this draft, but Will Campbell is an absolute beast on the offensive line. You go out and get a guy to protect Caleb Williams even more. So they did do a very good job in improving their O-line this year in free agency, though. And with all that, however, I still want you to go get Will Campbell if I'm Chicago because, Will Campbell has the versatility, and with the guys that you just signed, you can move him around a little bit and put him where you think fits best. So Will Campbell, number 10 to Chicago. Now, number 11 to San Francisco. It's between my two of my favorite corners in a long time, Will Johnson and Jahdae Barron. I still think Will Johnson's my number 1 corner off the board. People have been saying they find a little bit of inconsistencies in his game this last year in the limited amount of games that he played, but I still think Will Johnson's the guy that will take away half the field. I think Will Johnson is a stud, and no diss to Jahdae Barron because he is also a stud, but I think Will Johnson is the more pro-ready player to fit into a team like San Francisco. So number 12 now to Dallas. Dallas could go a couple ways. Obviously, I've gone Ashton Jeanty to Dallas forever. This time, I'm going to go to wide receiver and pick up Matthew Golden. I think Matthew Golden, out of all the receivers in this draft class that will probably be available at 12, fits best with Dallas. You got Burden, you got Egbuka, and you've got Matthew Golden. I think Egbuka and Burden play a little similar to how CeeDee Lamb kind of was looked at coming out of college. And I don't think you want 2 CeeDee Lambs on your team, 2 CeeDee Lamb type players. Obviously, if you could have 2 CeeDee Lamb caliber players on your team, you want that. But play-wise, what their tendencies are, what they usually do, that you don't really want multiple players doing the same thing. Kind of like why people are a little skeptical or suspicious about Cooper Kupp and JSN being on the same team. However, JSN has had his experience on the outside, so I don't think that's too much of a problem. But anyways, that's not draft talk. Matthew Golden, I think, fits the best out of the 3 receivers there alongside CeeDee Lamb. Brandon Cooks signs with the Saints, so you don't have your wide receiver 2. Wide receiver 2. They just haven't really had wide receiver depth, and if you're investing so much in CeeDee Lamb with that contract you gave him. You're investing so much in Dak Prescott with the contract you gave him, and then you're going to have to invest so much in Micah Parsons, unless you trade him. But I think getting a young wide receiver as well would be big for a team that could use the wide receiver. So, number 13 now to the Dolphins. Now, it's been a toss-up. Them and the next team, I think, are going to be flopped. That's how I think it's going to be. I've been going Malachi Starks a lot to the Dolphins, and then Tyler Warren to the Colts a lot of times. But I'm actually going to flip it. I'm going to go Tyler Warren to the Miami Dolphins. And you might ask, well, Jonnu Smith was good for them last year. Tyler Warren is a George Kittle type player. And if you give Mike McDaniel a George Kittle type player, dude, that's going to just make that offense even more explosive and make it even more good and just make it great. Now, they do kind of need the offensive line help. They do have the issues on the offensive line. Tua needs to stay healthy. That is such an important thing for them. But Tyler Warren is just, as I said, you give McDaniel a George Kittle-like college prospect, you are going to unleash your offense even more to an offense that's been so good. So Tyler Warren, 13 to the Dolphins. Now 14, as I said, we're going to flip it. Malachi Starks. Colts fans, I'm sorry. Tyler Warren is a match made in heaven for Indianapolis. Doesn't fall to you here. He goes to 14. He goes 13 right before you. Malachi Starks, though, is right there, and that is a position that you could desperately use is safety. Malachi Starks slots himself right in. He is the most pro-ready safety in this draft. He looks so much more polished than all these players. And a guy like Nick Emenwari, who's had some first-round talks, he's an athletic freak. But at the safety position, what they have said is, which I remember reading after the Combine, teams don't always see a correlation between athletic numbers at a Combine to how good you are at playing safety. So that's why I think Malachi Starks will be my first safety off the board and why he goes 14 to Indianapolis. Now, 15 to Atlanta. I've seen people go corner here. I'm going to go edge rusher, and I'm going to go Mykel Williams. I think the Georgia edge rushers are going to be second and third guys that come off the board. Well, edge rusher, Jalen Walker, obviously, as I said, he's a linebacker. But Mykel Williams, back-to-back Georgia players, 14-15. The Falcons just need improvement in their pass rush, and that's what Mykel Williams will do for you. He's got the upside. And you just got to develop the guy a little bit more, kind of polish up his game because he's a freak. He's an athletic freak. So now 16 to the Cardinals. I think I went Derek Harmon last time. This time I'm going to go to the edge rusher. He's more of a defensive lineman than he is an edge rusher. I'm going to go Shamar Stewart from Texas A&M. This guy, if I show you, he is an absolute unit. 290 pounds, 6'6". He has this one says 285, but he has such a prototypical edge rusher build that draft scouts love. And I think Arizona should notice that and really be able to say, hey, the interior probably could be the bigger need, but we need D-line as a whole. This guy has the size to be able to overpower maybe an offensive lineman if he is, but he's fast. He's quick. If you saw his combine, he was athletic. He was great. And that's why I think he goes 16 to Arizona. You take the big edge rusher that's available because that is what you need. You need a big presence on the D-line. Now, number 17 to Cincinnati, we're going to go with Mike Green from Marshall. As I said, he's been fantastic at Marshall. You look at his stats. The last 2 years, he's had a 90-plus grade. He's had 23 sacks in 2 years, 53 QB hurries, 13 quarterback hits. wow, just wow, man. Like this dude is a stud, and I've been saying it. I've been saying it. I kind of have really liked him for a while. I think my second or third mock draft, he was still kind of low on the boards. I put him at the end of the first round, and then all of a sudden he's a top 15 prospect on the big board. So Mike Green goes to Cincinnati, who I think will end up eventually trading Trey Hendrickson. They just gave so much money to their offense that is it worth giving an edge rusher 35, 40 million and then having like no cap room to sign anyone else? I say no. So I think Mike Green's fine, and they need some pass rush. So 18 to Seattle. I'm still going to keep it simple. I almost went with my guy Gray Zabel because I love Gray Zabel, being the guy that did a draft profile on him a little bit while he was still kind of being noticed as a second day 2 pick. Now he's rising a little bit. I think he could be a late first rounder. But I'm going to go Kelvin Banks Jr. from Texas. I still think his ability to move to guard would be beneficial for Seattle. Obviously, they had the worst interior offensive line in the league last year, pretty much. So Kelvin Banks Jr. goes 18 to Seattle. You've got some other things that you could do. You did just sign Sam Darnold, so you want to keep him protected, though. So Kelvin Banks Jr. goes 18. 19 now to the Buccaneers. I think it's finally time he goes off the board. Jahdae Barron. As I've said about him, he's great. He had a great combine. He has great raw numbers, but he also puts up good numbers in games, and it was great for Texas. So Jahdae Barron, back-to-back Texas players here. We got our back-to-back Georgia players, 14-15, back-to-back Texas players at 18 and 19. It's actually our third Texas player off the board. So Jahdae Barron, 19-2, Tampa Bay, who could use some help in the defensive back department. So now number 20 to Denver. I've been going Colston Loveland a lot, but they just got Evan Ingram in free agency after he was released by the Jaguars. Now number 20 overall, I could have had them going Omarion Hampton here. I don't think they go Omarion Hampton here. Obviously, they did just lose Javonte Williams. He's in Dallas now. But I'm going to go Luther Burden for Denver. I think that is just to build up a stronger wide receiver core and just build up a stronger offense. Sean Payton has done so much with high-powered offenses, and, he's an offensive guy. So I think you go and get Luther Burden for Bo Nix, who can sit in that slot. You've got Cortland Sutton, who's a great outside wide receiver. Now you've got Luther Burden, who's a great slot. So now number 21, Pittsburgh here. You did just lose Najee Harris to the Chargers. So I'm going to go Omarion Hampton. Najee Harris, maybe not the greatest performer for the Steelers past couple of years, but Jaylen Warren, not the greatest performer, not the RB1, it's my backfield type of guy. Omarion Hampton had a very good combine. I've always thought he could possibly slip into the end of the first round with Minnesota maybe. So I'm going to go Omarion Hampton here at 21 instead. Just kind of get a good running back for you. I do think, however, I go Omarion Hampton here. I do think that Jackson Dart at 21 is very much a possibility. They've gotten basically nobody in that quarterback room, so that is a very big possibility. I'm going Omarion Hampton just because if Rodgers, with Rodgers and everything. But he is also 41, so you can't really long-term invest in a guy who's 41 years old unless he's Tom Brady and plays until he's 45. But, we'll go 22 now for the Chargers. We're going to go Emeka Egbuka. It hurts Harbaugh to draft a wide receiver from Ohio State, but when it's Emeka Egbuka, who is just fantastic, and Justin Herbert, the big problem was, where's his weapons? You did just get Mike Williams back. He's gone for a year. Now he's back. Add another one on there. Add another one to the list. And Emeka Egbuka will go 22 to the Chargers. Him, Ladd McConkey, and Mike Williams, that would be a really, really good, healthy wide receiver core if it's healthy. Emphasis on the healthy part for Mike Williams. But now we'll go into 23 for the Packers. Man, I wanted to go a couple ways with this. Corner is obviously one of my favorite mocks, but I think you go interior. I think interior is a big thing that they might need to address for the long term. You know, they might lose some of their guys soon. So I went Walter Nolan to Green Bay. You might lose some of your guys. What's his name? Kenny Clark, right? Kenny Clark is only getting older. You know, I can't remember the other guy's name, but he's coming to an end. His contract might be coming to an end soon, depending on what they do with the 5th year. So he could be a free agent next year. I think Walter Nolan, you get a guy with 5 years possibility D-line on a team that could use the youth in the defensive interior. So Green Bay goes out and gets Walter Nolan. Now 24 to Minnesota. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm also going to go defensive interior. I'm going to go Kenneth Grant. I do like the possibility of Nick Amenwari here at 24. I like the possibility of Trey Amos. Even a guy like Maxwell Hairston, because the DB position group could use some improvement. You know, Cam Bynum, I believe, is gone. So Byron Murphy, I think he stayed. I can't really. I'm kind of blanking right now, guys. So I'm sorry. I apologize if you're a big like Byron Murphy fan, and you're like, how dare you forget this guy? Anyways. We'll go 25 now to the Texans. Offensive line is 100% my biggest need if you're the Texans, and that's where you go and get Gray Zabel, who can play all 5 positions on your offensive line, and you can move him inside because that is their biggest need is interior offensive line, and Gray Zabel can move inside. I think that if there is a team to go out and get a guard this in the first round, it would be the Texans picking a guy like Tyler Booker. But I think Gray Zabel is the better choice. He is the FCS prospect, but he's an FCS lineman. He is at least he's not a North Dakota State quarterback. So he's not gonna like flourish and then get hurt and then his career's never the same, or he'll never just produce to what you think he's gonna be because he's an offensive lineman. He's not a quarterback. But I'll go Gray Zabel. Number one need is protecting Stroud. He took substantially more sacks than he did the year prior in his rookie season. So you get him some protection. And you just traded away Laramie Tunsil to Washington. So now pick 26 to the Rams. I'm going to go with a little bit of a different move here. I think tackle is probably the bigger of the two needs. Maybe Jahad Campbell goes here to LA, but I went Colston Loveland. Their tight end group isn't the most promising. You just kept Stafford. You have Nakua. I think Loveland would be great in Los Angeles. I think the two Los Angeles teams should really, really, really focus in on if they should pick Colston Loveland or not. And in this one, I've got him going to the Rams. And I mean, I would love to see Colston Loveland catch passes for Matthew Stafford. That would be a really, really cool duo to watch. So I'm going to go Colston Loveland here, even though I've been wanting to go Josh Simmons more at 26, but we'll go Colston Loveland at 26 since we've been doing Josh Simmons, I feel like, to the Rams a little bit too much. Now at 27 to the Ravens. The Ravens need an edge rusher. That's my number one need for you. They did have some guy I think they need just a young guy. And I'm going to go Donovan Izuraku, I think. Izuraku or whatever. Man, guys, might be butchering these names, but he was really good at Boston College. He had 14 sacks this year, most in Power 5. Great pass rusher. And that's what you could use in Baltimore on a team that doesn't really have the most notable edge rushers when this guy could possibly be a notable edge rusher. So now at 28, Detroit, I have you going edge rusher as well. James Pierce Jr. falls to 28 to you. I am jumping up and down like a kid in a candy shop if I am Dan Campbell in the Lions coaching staff. So James Pierce Jr.'s upside's insane. He's Athletically, he's insane. He has been rumored to have some some issues with how he is, like how he's been during some of the processes. Apparently, his character's not great. But I still think he gets first round. He's a first round draft pick. So Washington now in the first round, 29. We're gonna go to corner here. We're gonna go to my favorite corner performance from the combine, Maxwell Hairston. I think that athletic ability gets him into the first round with a team that needs a corner so badly, like Washington. Washington also could take Nick Skirton. Maybe take Jahad Campbell. I don't know if they go linebacker though. I just think Maxwell Hairston, with the way that he performed at the combine, really boosted his draft stock. And it's not just that he's good at the combine. He's just a good player. And I think Azariah Thomas could also move into the first round. But I'm going to have Hairston going 29 here to the Commanders, to a team that most desperately needs corner help. Now number 30, sorry. Number 30 to the Buffalo Bills. We'll go back to my favorite bread and butter, Derek Harmon. I love Derek Harmon as a player and think he would be good for the Bills defensively. To get a young guy in the interior like Derek Harmon, who's just an absolute presence in the middle of the trenches. So now 31 to the Chiefs. I think Josh Simmons is the pick here, either him or Josh Connerly. Tackle should be the need you go for. If Colston Loveland falls here, I think there's a possibility he could go to the Chiefs because Travis Kelce, is returning, but he's going to retire soon. So, Loveland's a possibility, but Josh Simmons, who's a guy that when he's healthy is one of the better tackles in college football. So we'll go with Josh Simmons here, 31. That's a good pickup for the Chiefs. And then finally, the Super Bowl champs, their last pick, they get an edge rusher in Nick Skirton, who is not at my favorite compared to the two. Obviously, I have Shamar Stewart going 16 picks before him, but Nick Skirton's still a really big prospect. I mean, he was projected to be top 10 for a decent amount of the draft path, but still falls down to the late first round. I still think he's a first-round player. And that's a position that the Eagles could really focus on now that Josh Sweat's gone. And Brandon Graham has retired. So that'll be it for our first round mock draft. Just let me know what you think. I'm going to try and fit everybody on the screen here. It's cutting out the bottom two, which are Shamar Stewart and Nick Skirton. But let me know what you think. If you like who I drafted for your team, what you want your team to do, what you think your team's going to do in the draft. And then, as I said previously at the beginning of the video, MLB content, if you guys want to have that, want me to do it, let me know in the comments. If you want me to focus a little bit more on NFL offseason, let me know as well. And if you made it to the end of the video, I appreciate it. I would love if you just hit the subscribe button. It's free. It helps me out a ton. Like the video if you enjoyed. Check out some of my other content, and I will see y'all in the next one. Peace.